All right, today we're tackling a topic that is so big, so influential, that its ideas are literally part of how we talk every day. But it's also so controversial that people have been fighting about it for over 100 years. Yeah, we're talking about psychoanalysis. So, when you hear the name Freud, what's the first thing that pops into your head? A leather couch, Freudian slips? To a lot of us, this stuff feels like it belongs in a museum. But does it? Or are these ideas still humming away in the background, shaping everything from our therapy sessions to why we do the things we do? That's the big question we're digging into.
Okay, so before we even get to the controversy, and trust me, there's a lot of it, let's talk about the ideas that actually stuck. You've really got to understand just how deep these concepts have dug themselves into our world.
And it's not an exaggeration to say that psychoanalysis completely flipped the script on what it means to be human. It gave us this totally new way of looking at the mind, a way that blew up the old idea that we're just these rational beings who are always in the driver's seat.
And this right here, this was the bombshell. The concept of the unconscious. The idea was that the things really pulling our strings, our hidden desires, our buried memories, stuff from our childhood, we can't even see them. They're deep underwater, but they're still steering the ship. This one idea completely changed how we think about our past. It doesn't just go away, it stays with us, always.
And what's really wild is how this language just sort of leaked into our everyday lives. I mean, have you ever told a friend they're in denial? Or talked about repressing a cringy memory? If you have, boom, you're speaking psychoanalysis. These defense mechanisms are basically the little tricks our mind plays to protect us from feeling anxious or conflicted. It's fascinating stuff. But these weren't just cool ideas to debate in a university classroom. No, they became the actual foundation for a new way to heal people, something we now just call talk therapy. The whole point was to drag all that unconscious baggage out into the open so we could finally deal with it. And you can totally see how it's changed over time. It started out as this super intensive, long-term analysis on the couch, digging into the distant past. But it's evolved. Now we have modern psychodynamic therapy, which is much more focused, shorter term, and helps people tackle problems they're facing today, like anxiety or depression. It just goes to show how adaptable the core ideas really are. But, and this is a huge but, for as influential as it's been, psychoanalysis has pretty much always been a lightning rod for criticism. So to get the whole story, we absolutely have to look at the other side of the coin, because the pushback is a massive part of this tale.
So, the first and maybe the biggest knock against psychoanalysis has always been its rocky relationship with science. From day one, people have been asking, is this a real science or is it just a collection of really compelling stories? I mean, think about it. How do you pop open the hood and scientifically measure the unconscious? How can you prove with hard data what a dream really means? You can't, really. A key rule in science is that a theory has to be falsifiable. You need to be able to prove it wrong. But with psychoanalysis, so much of it comes down to one therapist's personal interpretation, which makes it almost impossible to test. All right, the next big challenge is all about culture. Are these theories about the human mind truly universal? Or do they just describe a very specific kind of person from a very specific time and place? You have to remember, psychoanalysis was born in Vienna at the end of the 19th century, and its theories are soaked in that specific European worldview. Critics, including groundbreaking analysts like Karen Horney, called it out for being way too male-centric. And beyond that, a lot of people argue that its core ideas just don't click in non-Western cultures, where the whole concept of family, self, and inner conflict can be completely different. So, where does that leave us? We've got this incredibly powerful legacy on one side and some really serious valid limitations on the other. How do we weigh all of this to figure out if it still matters? When you lay it all out, the conflict is pretty clear. On the one hand, psychoanalysis gave us the building blocks for so much of modern psychology and therapy. It offered us a radical new way of seeing ourselves. But on the other hand, it's shaky on the scientific proof, and it's definitely colored by a specific and some would say biased cultural lens.
This quote really nails it. Maybe trying to judge psychoanalysis as a hard science is missing the point. Maybe its real, lasting gift was more philosophical. It basically gave us permission, and the words, to start exploring the vast, messy, hidden world inside our own heads. And perhaps that's the real takeaway here. Psychoanalysis might not be a perfect map that gives us all the answers, but what it did was hand us a flashlight and point it toward a huge, dark, unexplored continent inside of us. Its true power isn't in giving us certainty, but in sparking a relentless curiosity about our own inner lives. So the question it taught us to ask is one we can still ask today. What's really going on beneath your surface?